This is a sports catastrophe production.
Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And I know this is unusual, and I know I could have picked Bill Cowher or Ronnie Lott. But the rule for me is I try my best not to have the same person from, well, the same sport for two straight things to do with either on this day or birthday, unless it's something like the NCAA tournament and all that. So, what about Akebono? Now, people think, why are you doing sumo wrestling? Well, for one thing, I'm a big fan of sumo wrestling. I learned about it first when I was a 9-year-old doing a school unit on Japan. That was when the Kobe 1995 earthquake happened. But basically, I remember sumo wrestling, and it's like a big sport, and all these things. I basically got into sumo, but I wasn't that heavy into sumo until 2013 when Jason's sumo channel on YouTube had all these old bashals, and I'm like, I'm interested. So I basically have some sumo channels I subscribe to, and I try to see some old sumo footage of the great Akebono, Takanohana, Kodishiki, the big stars. Now, sumo wrestling, when Akebono came around, when he first came in 19, made his way up the ranks in 1988, was not really that bad. Gianna Fuji was an icon and all that. There weren't too many sumo wrestlers who could be like Gianna Fuji. There were a few other Yokozuna, including one who actually ended up losing his rank as Yokozuna because he had done some off ring stuff. I don't want to bore you with how sumo wrestling works and all that. So basically, we'll just say this. Now, this is a key wrestler by the name of Akebono Taro, aka Chad Rowan, because he's American. That's right. Akebono comes all the way from Hawaii. He joined sumo at age 19. Well, he's 52 today because it's May 8th. He joined sumo at 19 in 1988 and was trained by Hawaii wrestler Takamiyama, who was actually the first foreign-born person to win a tournament. That was in 1972. Takamiyama also trained Akebono's cohort, Korishiki, going up the ranks. So basically, he got to top division in 1990, and after two straight title wins in November 92 and January 93, he became the first non-Japanese born wrestler to be Yokozuna. He's one of the tallest and heaviest wrestlers ever. Akebono's rivalry with Takanohana and Wakanohana, who were brothers, was a big factor in the increased popularity of sumo on TV and at tournaments in the 1990s. He spent 8 years being the Yokozuna Grand Champion, and he won 8 titles for a total of 11, which isn't that bad. He was runner-up on 13 occasions, despite suffering injuries. Akebono and Takanohana were basically huge rivals and all that, despite the fact that Takanohana won more tournaments than Akebono. Well, Akebono retired in 2000. Takanohana wrestled for a few more years after that. Basically, their head-to-head was close. Akebono was 6'8" and 514 pounds at its best, at its sumo heaviest. Like 6'8" in sumo wrestling, when you're 5'10", 5'11", you have a better center of gravity and all that. And sumo usually has a weight limit. I think 250 is basically the weight limit. So basically, yeah. Anyway, Akebono was with two younger brothers who actually became a sumo. One of them was a sumo wrestler after Akebono. He went to Hawaii Pacific University to study in hotel management because with Japanese tourists coming to Hawaii, that he may have had something all of that. So anyway, he was interested in sumo from watching TV broadcasts, and a family friend introduced him to Takamiyama, who also came from Hawaii. And basically, he allowed Akebono to join his stable in 1988. Akebono does tell the story about how he went to Japan, but his mother basically turned her back on him and all that. His ring name, or Shikona, of Akebono meant New Dawn. He made his professional debut March 1988. And this entry cohort actually brought Takanohana and Wakanohana, who were sons of the popular 1970s champion Takanohana Kinchi. And also Kaio came from the same cohort. So basically, yeah, from the late 80s. Akebono rose rapidly through the ranks actually had the most consecutive kashikoshi, or majority wins, or above 500, if you will, in a sumo from debut. He was second wake before he turned into a losing record. He was promoted to Juryo in March of 1990 and to Makuchi in September. Juryo is the second division. Makuchi is the top division, if you will. So basically, he would make his top division debut the same time as Wakano Hana, Takatoriki, and Daisho Yama. He won a few big matches. In January 1991, he beat Yokozuna Asahi Fuji and get a Kimboshi, a gold star, making, if you're not a Sanyaku wrestler, or basically in the sumo ranks, Yokozuna's grand champion, Oseki is champion. Then you go down to Sekawake and Komusubi, basically lower ranks. But if you're below Komusubi in the Makashira ranks, from 1 to 16 or whatever, if you beat a Yokozuna, you get a Kimboshi. That means you get a bonus for every tournament, and it stockpiles and all that. It's not just for that's just for one tournament. I think it's like $10,000, about $1,000 American, $1 to $10,000 American, and all that. You get that for the same one. So even if you have 5 Kimboshis and you haven't had one in a while, you still get 50,000 extra bucks per tournament. In fact, Akebono would have some bad news in 91. 91, he just couldn't get double-digit wins. However, in January 92, he actually won 13 out of 15 belts, losing to Takanohana. A second 13-2 mark got him the title in May, which was good, which meant he was promoted to Oseki. Unfortunately, he got injured and couldn't really sumo, but he won consecutive titles in November 92 and January 93. And in Japan, if you're an Oseki, if you win 2 straight tournaments, you're automatically given the Yokozuna rank, which means you can't drop from Yokozuna, but you can only if you retire, if you will. There were no Yokozuna in sumo for 8 months, which was rare and all that. Many people actually welcomed the fact that he was promoted, despite the fact that he was the first foreign-born Yokozuna. He did meet the stipulation of winning titles from the Yokozuna Deliberation Council. But basically, Akebono had conducted himself with dignity and humility for such an assaulted rank. Basically, people have said he makes me forget he's a foreigner because of his earnest attitude towards sumo. Now, 92, Konishiki was close to getting that thing. Unfortunately, Konishiki may or may not have said that basically if he was Japanese, he would get the title Yokozuna. And that plagued him. I mean, Konishiki, after that near miss, I don't think won a basho after that, and basically went downhill till he retired in 97. But anyway, he was a long-standing Yokozuna, 8 years, and winning 8 titles as a Yokozuna. He actually won 3 straight tournaments, which is rare in any sport, unless you're Hakuho. But in 93, he did fantastic. He would have to beat the Hana brothers, Takanohana and Wakanohana, to win a title in July 93 in the playoff, and he had to beat Takanohana twice on the final day of May 97, once in regular belts and then in the playoff to get his Kachikoda, to get his first Hanbasho in 2 years. It was weird. Akebono and Takanohana head-to-head were 25 and 25, so basically nothing between those two. Akebono was actually asked to represent Japan in the opening ceremony as a sumo wrestler to represent each of the competing countries. Takanohana fell ill, so Akebono did the ceremonial ring stomping thing, and it's amazing and all that. Unfortunately, Akebono got hurt a lot because of his height and weight. All that, so that's the problem. He missed 3 tournaments in 1980, late 98 and early 99 because of his herniated disc in his lower back, and they wanted him to retire. But the chairman of the Japan Sumo Association kept on him, saying that he could do well. And then Akebono in 2000, he had his first injury-free year since 93 and won 2 tournaments and being runner-up in 3 others. There's 6 tournaments a year, every other month. So he won 76 bouts, which is out of 90, which is pretty good. He had a fighting style that was great, but my favorite fighting style is his Supari techniques, his slapping techniques. Basically, that's how I know Akebono. Slapped the person out of the ring and all that. After winning a title in November 2000, he actually suffered another injury, but he decided to retire and face a daunting struggle back to fighting fitness. So basically, he became an oyakata, or coach, of the Japan Sumo Association. And he trained Asa Shoru, who was a Yokozuna for a while. All that. Akebono actually left the Sumo Association in 2003 to join K1, which was weird. But he had a lot of financial problems and all that. And he lost his supporters network when his marriage dissolved in '98. And he couldn't earn a lot as an Oyakata coach. K1 said they could clear his debts if he fights for them. Unfortunately, Akebono in the kickboxing and mixed martial arts fields were terrible. 1 and 13 combined. It's like, holy crap. So it was terrible to see him all that try to fight in mixed martial arts, and he ends up only winning one match, and that was against Nobuo Kakuda at K1 Grand Prix in Seoul before Hong Man Choi basically TKO'd him in 24 seconds. So yeah, not good for him in K1. He would fight some gut. Unfortunately, he just couldn't do it and all that. He would actually be in the WWE in 2005. At first, he made an appearance at the show when SmackDown went to Japan. And basically, Akebono and Big Show would stare each other around, and then they actually would have a sumo fight. Not a WWE fight, but a sumo fight. Akebono faced a developmental talent. Well, he accepted Big Show's challenge to a sumo match, and then he said he would make his wrestling debut. And basically, Akebono won the sumo fight. I know it was one of the worst fights in WrestleMania history, but it was great to see sumo make the mainstream. Akebono would then make his official wrestling debut in Japan with All Japan Pro Wrestling. It was like, what the heck is going on? Then he went to New Japan Pro Wrestling, Hustle, Dragon Gate, back to All Japan, Ulta. Wow. Akebono was a decent wrestler first time. So his personal life. He was born to Randy, who was a taxi driver of Irish and Hawaiian descent, and Janice, an office worker of Cuban and Hawaiian descent. He was a Japanese citizen in 1996, gave up his American citizenship, and changed his legal name from Chandro to Akebono Taro. He did state that changing my nationality does not have anything to do with who I am. Just like I am still my mother's son even after I became a Japanese citizen. He would be engaged to a television channel by name Yu Aihara, but broke it off. And then in '98, he actually was engaged to Christiane Kalina, who was actually Japanese and American descent. They have 2 sons and a daughter of that. Unfortunately, in 2017, after a wrestling tour, Akebono was unwell. Unfortunately, it was revealed that Akebono's wife said that her husband suffered acute heart failure and was in a medically induced coma for 2 weeks. He lost a lot of weight, most of it muscle, and could not walk in 2018. So basically, sometimes Akebono is on the long way from heart failure, and he's still alive. Thank goodness for that. So yeah, so Akebono won 2 titles in '92, 4 in '93, 1 in '94, 1 in '95, 1 in '97, and 2 in 2000, which is pretty good. So 11 titles. That's pretty good in the list. All that. Here's what All Japan Wrestling. He was actually the Triple Crown Heavyweight Championship of All Japan Pro Wrestling twice, and 2-time Tag Team Champion. Wow. He was actually in the top 500 wrestlers of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, number 115 in 2006. Amazing. Pro Wrestling Zero, he won 1 time heavyweight champion and won a couple of tag team awards. That's pretty impressive. All that. So a lot of sumo record holders. Akebono is actually 10th on the all-time list of career titles with 11. Hakuho is first with 44, blasting past Taiho's 32, which was a record from 1971 to 2016, I think. That was a long time. Gianno Fuji started with 31. His rival Takahana has 22 titles from 92 to 2001. Wow, 86. Senshou Yusho, as in 15-0 marks. Akebono is not on the list. Let's see. Akebono has been to seven playoffs at the end of the Basho, which is actually fourth behind Hakuo Takanohana, his rival, and Kitana Nomi. Most career wins. Let's see if Akebono's on any more lists. This one's on a calendar here. I don't think Akebono's got any other massive title things. I think not. I think Akebono. Yeah. Oh, Akebono, 48 tournaments as Yokozuna, 6th all-time behind Hakuho, Kitanomi, Gianno Fuji, Taiho, and Takahana, his rival. Let's see if there's any more Akebono records he has. It doesn't look like it. Nope, that's all. But Akebono is still an iconic sumo for all time. And yes, I know there's some Yokozuna who are not Japanese. Hakuho is not Japanese by birth, he's Mongolian. But basically, yeah, he set the trend for foreign born wrestlers to be huge in the sport, to some Japanese people's chagrin. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond.